1 day or 2 days before the interview with Oxford, I actually got to know that my entire family has COVID. And I got to know that my mom, my sister-in-law, everyone was getting admitted in an hospital. And I also had to get admitted in the hospital to take care of my mother. And I gave my interview from the hospital. I was just feeling privileged to be able to sit in that interview. Hey everyone. My name is Shlok Gupta and I welcome you to Shlok. This is the part 2 of my MBA journey. In the part 1, I have discussed extensively about my GMAT journey, how tough, exciting and engaging it was, and how I was able to grow my GMAT score from 550 to 700 plus. If you want to look at the GMAT journey, you should refer to the part 1. In this video, I am going to talk extensively about that what happened after I gave GMAT, how I was able to select MBA colleges, how I was able to get into one of the top 25 MBA programs in the world with a very good scholarship. Well, to be very honest, I had thought that GMAT is the toughest part of an international MBA journey, but I was very wrong. The part and the journey after GMAT is equally very tough. Well, after I gave my GMAT, I honestly had no idea that which colleges I should apply to. I had only heard that, okay, I have got a good GMAT score and I can get into good college. So can I really get into Harvard or Stanford? Well, I was really dreaming of that. And a lot of people who reach out to me now also says that if they have got more than 700, they can easily get into Harvard. That is not how the journey really works for an average Indian. GMAT is just 30% of the factor that is considered when it comes to MBA admissions. There are a lot of other factors that really count. And to give you all bad news that if you are an Indian or Chinese, if you have got 720, 30, 40, even 750 or 60, it is really not easy to get into a college like Harvard or Stanford because there's a lot of competition among all of us. And a lot of other factors have to play a role if you want to get into any of these colleges. These factors are as follows. The first factor is, of course, your academic background. Generally, if you have scored more than 90% in class 10 or 12, then that's a great thing. If you have scored more than 85% in your undergrad, that is again a great thing. Well, if you have not scored very well in one of these departments, you can always get a very high score in GMAT, and that will actually balance out your academics part. The second part is your work experience. And this work experience is a very important aspect. When a top school is looking to some of their candidates, they want somebody who has a very unique work experience from a very unique company. For example, if you have played in IPL and you are a cricketer, you have a very unique work experience. If you are a scientist or a researcher who has worked in NASA or any other space agency, you have a very unique work experience. But if you are an IT engineer working in Bangalore, you don't have at all a unique work experience. Well, that was the case with me. I have worked for 5 years in Hyderabad. My work experience was not at all unique. That made sure that it was very hard for me to get into a college like Harvard or Stanford. Also, whatever your work experience is, there is very high chances that you are from an IT industry or from an engineering background and you have worked in India. It is better if you have a lot of leadership experience. Well, if you have worked in a startup and in that startup, if you were the director of that startup, your mileage and the fact that you will be considered more for a good MBA program or your weightage would be more are a lot more than the fact that if you have worked in a mass recruiter like Infosys and you were just a tester in that company. So your work experience, if it is unique, it is better. If you have leadership roles, it is always better. And also, if you have worked in a bigger brand, if you have worked in a company like Deloitte versus a company like Wipro, there are better chances that your weightage for working in Deloitte would be more. Also, if you are applying for an MBA, it is very common that people love to switch quickly to increase their salary. And if you are applying to an MBA with 5 or 6 years of work experience, and if you have switched 2 or 3 times, this will show the admission committee that you are not really stable. So this can actually impact your admission chances. So there should be consistency in your job and you should have worked at one company. Another important factor is your extracurriculars. Yes, in India, extracurriculars is not a big thing. But if you are applying outside, extracurricular is a big. Well, for example, I was the president of a Toastmasters club because I enjoyed public speaking. This showed that I have a lot of interest outside work. Also, I have developed leadership skills and I can command a group of 15 or 20 people. And I have good public speaking skills. Similarly, if you are somebody who loves working for the community, you should have good volunteering experience. If you are somebody who loves playing guitar, you should have joined a kind of a band and you should have played somewhere. So extracurricular really matters a lot when you are applying to colleges outside India. Next important thing is that all your profiles should be very optimized. That includes your LinkedIn, your resume, all your essays should be in great order, and really these things are going to affect a lot whether you get into a good MBA college or not. So these are some of the factors that I had an idea would definitely impact my chance of admission and my scholarship. And I had started working on them in advance. For example, when it comes to extracurriculars, I had made sure that I do a lot of extracurricular and I do some amazing things so that can contribute a lot for my MBA admissions. Now, coming to the main journey, back to the main journey, as I have described all these factors that were affecting me, it was time for me to decide that which all colleges should I apply to. And I had few factors that I made sure that I considered before applying. The first thing was, of course, geography. Well, a lot of people come to me and they say that they want to study in Australia, in Europe, but the truth is, when it comes to Europe, there are not a lot of job opportunities that are coming up in comparison to North America. Similar is the case for Australia. Even in Europe, if you are studying in a country, you need to know the local language of that country. So if you are studying in Germany, you need to know German. Well, you can easily say that you would study in United Kingdom, but the honesty is that's a very small market. And that's a decreasing market. And getting into a great MBA program and getting into a good company after an MBA in United Kingdom has lower probability than doing that exact same thing in Canada or in United States. So I always recommend people, if you are applying to an MBA college, apply to great North American colleges or some great Indian colleges. That's exactly what I did. And I also had one European college in my list. That was my dream college. That was Oxford University. So I decided that, okay, the geography part, I would make sure that I applied to a lot of North American colleges. I applied to some great Indian colleges. For example, ISB. I'll apply to one European college, that is Oxford, because that was my dream college. Next thing that I considered was the duration of my MBA. Well, to be very honest, I thought that this is the last time I'll be in my MBA program. So I thought that this would be the last time I would be in a program where I get to study in a college. I don't think I'm going to take college ever again in my life. So I thought a 2-year MBA program would be good. Also, I thought that in 2 years, I would be able to learn and build a new perspective a lot more in comparison to 1-year MBA program. Generally, North American colleges offer 2-year MBA program in comparison to European, which offer 1-year MBA program. And the benefit of 1-year program is that you would be getting into the job market a little bit sooner, but at the same time, you have less time to prepare yourself, do the coursework, do the networking, and do a lot of other things. So that's why I prefer 2-year MBA program, and that's why I decided I'll go with a 2-year MBA program. Third thing was very important was the job market. As I've been talking about initially, that job market in USA is a lot better than any other place in the world, and that is the reality. I understand that getting an H-1B visa or getting a permanent residentship in USA is a lot tougher in comparison to other parts of the world. It is because the job market is so good. That's why USA was always my #1 priority. I also thought about Canada, but in getting a work visa in Canada is a lot easier. But the quality of MBA programs, if you are looking for top 50 MBA programs in the world, it's not really good. Second priority for me was India, because for me, getting a job in India is very easy because I have lived in India all my life. But at the same time, the quality of MBA programs, if you look at the top 50 MBA programs, only ISB is actually in that list, no other college. Another factor was cost of living. I was not at all going to an MBA if I had to pay rupees 2 crore rupees as my fees plus living expenses, which can easily turn out if you are doing an MBA from United States or Canada or even United Kingdom. I only did MBA in these countries because I was getting a very good scholarship, and the scholarship was actually covering most of my expenses. If I had to pay so much money, I would not have done MBA from these countries, and I would have done MBA from India. So cost of living is also a big consideration. You should always try to amp up your profile so that you can get the most scholarship and you will have to pay least money and you can do an MBA from these colleges. Another thing which was very important for me was getting out of comfort zone. Well, all my life I have lived in India and I have seen that world. I really wanted to look at the world from a very different perspective. I wanted to develop a new way of understanding how this society works. And for me, getting out of India was very important. That's why at the end, I decided to go for an international college instead of an Indian college. So these factors helped me apply for some of the colleges. So at the end, I applied for 5 colleges, out of which one of them was the Indian college, that was Indian School of Business. I chose one European college, that was Oxford, and the other 3 were all United States based college because I really wanted to move to US because I saw there was a great opportunity of getting a job. So honestly, I had really no idea how I should go ahead, and I'll be very honest, I actually got a consultant on board. The consultant was all right. I would recommend you guys to look at the reviews when you are getting a consultant. The consultant really helps you actually with these things, whatever I am telling you in the video right now, that which all colleges you should apply to and what all factors you should consider. A consultant would tell you that and they would charge you 2 or 3 lakh rupees for that. I'm telling you all this for free in this video. After I got consulted, I realized that the first round, if I'm applying to the first round, would be the best, and that would be September. So I started preparing all my applications for all these colleges. I had a lot of essays to write, and honestly, I had no idea then that how I should write an essay. Today people call me and they tell me that I have great writing skills. At that time, I had no confidence on myself. So for me, it was very important that I be honest in my essays, and I try to bring out stories that are very familiar and they bring a good quality somewhere outside and somewhere from my life. That was very important for me. And also at the same time, the English I was writing was of good quality. That was also something very important for me. So I think in around June or July, I started doing that. I started writing my essays and it was time to submit my application. At that same time, the COVID was happening and I was stuck at my home. And to be very honest, that's when COVID was happening. So honestly, it was all about the world was blowing up, but I was literally sitting inside and I was working on my essays. I would say that if you are writing an essay, give it a lot of time because you just cannot write anything and you cannot submit it anyway, because essays are going to be an essential part and colleges really pay attention to your essays. Another thing was getting letter of recommendation. Well, I'll be very thankful to all my managers who I have worked with. They were more than happy to write letter of recommendations for me because I told them about what I am going through, what I want to do. I told them that, hey, I want to grow in my career and your support would be very important for me. So if you can write letter of recommendation for these colleges, it would be amazing. And they were very happy to help me. So I think the fact that I was able to maintain good relations with my managers, that is why they were happy to help me and write those letter of recommendations. So I would suggest you to make sure that you have good relations with your managers also. So after I wrote my essays and I submitted those essays one by one, I started getting calls for interview rounds from some of the colleges. I didn't get interview calls from some of these colleges. So my first interview was with ISB and I had no idea that it was going to be such a tough interview. So it was with two alums. ISB really just gave me a date and time that when they would be interviewing me. They had no consideration on when I want to get interviewed. Most of the international colleges actually have that privilege where they will ask you when you want to get interviewed. But ISB really had no such consideration. My interview of ISB started. There was a guy and there was a girl, and they both had great experience. It was a very stress level interview. I had heard that ISB gets and becomes a stress interview. They were really checking me when I would break. I actually broke down. I not in terms of crying, but there was a time when I had no idea what to speak. So it really gets tough, and you really get pulled down in those kinds of interview, and that's exactly what happened with ISB. But I made sure that I was giving good and confident answer. I was making sure that I was being true to myself, and in the end, I actually got into ISB. I got a letter of acceptance from ISB. So I hope my interview went well. But it was definitely a stress interview. Some of my next interview was Oxford. And just 1 day or 2 days before the interview with Oxford, I actually got to know that my entire family has COVID. And today, COVID might not be that big of a thing, but at that time, having a COVID like in 2020 it was a huge thing. And I got to know that my mom, my sister-in-law, everyone was getting admitted in an hospital, and I also had to get admitted in the hospital to take care of my mother. It was a very distressing time. My mother was on oxygen. It was not a really wonderful time. I was in hospital for around 11 days. I was on the bed, and my Oxford interview was actually from the hospital. The internet was really bad, and I gave my interview from the hospital. I was just feeling privileged to be able to sit in that interview, because for a lot of people, it is a big dream to be able to give an Oxford interview. So I was very happy. I gave my interview. I was very distracted and I didn't get selected in Oxford. Also, my profile was not really unique. I'm an Indian IT male with 720 GMAT. If I had 780 or 790, they might have considered me. But my profile was also not unique. I was not a diversity candidate. So these factors might have played, but I really felt bad that I didn't get into. Now, there were 3 colleges left that were all American colleges. Thankfully, I was out of hospital. My entire family was out of hospital from the COVID. We were still in quarantine. That's when I gave my other interviews. So my interview was with Washington University in St. Louis. It went great. It was awesome. They had a lot of behavioral questions. One very important thing is in these colleges, they really want to see if you are a good fit for the college or not. So when they ask that why my college, why WashU, why ISB, they will try to judge you on the basis of the kind of things you have done in the past and how it relates to the cultural values of that college. So I would highly recommend to go to the website of these colleges and try to understand what are some of the values these colleges hold. So my interview with WashU was wonderful. One great thing that I observed was the fact that interview of these international colleges is a lot more calmer. People are a lot more friendly in comparison to Indian colleges, where people are really strict and they try to bring everything out of you. When it comes to international colleges, they are a lot more calmer, and you might think that you are giving a great interview, but they are literally listening to each line you are saying and they are trying to judge you based on that. So my interview with WashU went very well. There were 2 other colleges. One of them was Georgetown, which I gave the interview for. It's a great college in Washington, D.C. It's a college where a lot of people from the political hemisphere of the United States have actually studied. So I was very excited for this college and I gave the interview. I got into this college. There was one more college which I interviewed for. I didn't get into that college, so I won't reveal the name. So it was around a 4-5 month long journey. I had applied to a lot of college in the first round. I had applied to some colleges in the second round. In the end, I had 3 admits. One was ISB, one was Georgetown, and another was Washington University, that is Olin. That is my current college. And in the end, I had to decide out of these. So one very important thing that I would like to tell you guys is that you should make sure that you have diversity of colleges and you apply to at least 5 colleges so that you always have a good chance into getting into some or the other college. Don't just apply to one or two college, and don't just apply to college which you think is your dream college and you would easily get into. You should make sure. Also, if you are looking for a great kind of scholarship, you should not really eye for a college which is just out of the world. You cannot just apply to Michigan Ross and expect 100% scholarship if you're an Indian, if you're IT from an IT background, if you're male. So make sure you keep all those things under consideration. You apply to good, great, practical colleges based on talking to their alums, looking at what are some of the things they are looking for, which really matches your work experience and what you want to do in the future. So that is how you should apply to colleges. So in the end, I was very happy that I got 3 admits. Finally my dream of getting into an MBA with so much long journey was actually going to get full. First college I rejected was ISB. ISB is a great college, no offense, but the class size is 600 plus. So I really didn't want to study in such a big class. Also, it's based in India. I really wanted to go out and explore the world. So that is the reason why I didn't go to ISB and I rejected that college. The second college, now it was competition with Georgetown and WashU. And to be honest, in the end, I really made sure that money was a big factor, which played under consideration. I was getting a lot more scholarship from WashU in comparison to Georgetown. So that's why I decided to go with WashU. That is my current university. And that's how I chose this college. Do stay tuned for the next video. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. Do follow me on Instagram and on LinkedIn. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you. Namaste. Bye bye.